저희 LA 1팀은 서울 지류 활성화를 위해 LA강을 방문했습니다. 도시에서 수변 공간은 모두에게 열린 공간입니다. 도시 활성화와 시민들의 삶의 질 향상을 위해 수변 공간은 재조명되고 있습니다. 한강의 눈부신 성장에 이어 지류 개발을 앞둔 지금, 지류에서는 한강과 다른 지류 각각의 특색을 살린 접근이 필요합니다. 이를 위해선 시민들의 의견을 파악하고 반영하는 것이 선행되어야 합니다. LA강을 연구 목적으로 방문해야겠다고 생각한 이유론 여러 가지가 있습니다. LA강은 콘크리트 채널로 뒤덮여 있으며 이러한 구조적 한계는 더욱 시민들의 목소리에 귀를 기울이게끔 했습니다. 51마일에 이르는 광범위한 규모의 강을 체계적으로 관리하기 위해 각각 지역의 규모와 특색에 맞도록 LA 리버 마스터 플랜이 강 개발을 총괄하고 있습니다. 그 과정에서 다양한 커뮤니티와 비영리 단체들은 모두 활발히 소통하며 시민들의 참여를 이끌고 있습니다. 서울의 지류 역시 지역성을 반영하고 시민들의 참여를 이끄는 공간으로서 충분한 잠재력이 있습니다. 이러한 잠재력을 발휘하기 위해 저희는 3가지 필요 요소를 키워드로 잡았습니다. 거주 주민들에게 필요한 시설과 그들의 이야기를 담는 지역성, 지역문화 예술인 발굴로 다채롭게 지류를 꾸밀 수 있는 문화예술, 환경, 교육, 체험, 보다 폭넓은 범위에서의 적극적인 시민 참여. 위 3가지 키워드 하에서 저희는 서울 지류를 시민 중심의 수변 공간으로서 되살리자는 목표를 가지고 본격적인 탐방을 했습니다. 첫 번째로 LA 리버 마스터 플랜에 방문했습니다. 이들은 LA강에 대한 9가지 목표를 설정해 가이드라인을 제시하는 정부 기관입니다. 이곳에서 서울형 수변 감성 도시 사업과 LA강 사업의 상호 보완을 위해 각각의 특징과 방향성을 논의하고자 했습니다.
What the master plan also has is a kit of parts, and this is essentially a guidebook and a toolbook of all of the typologies for the LA River. So if somebody wants to go ahead and provide improvements along the river at a specific location, there are 6 typologies that they can look at. So if you have a location along the river where you know you need access and open space thoroughfare, you would look into the trails and access gateways kit of parts to see what kind of visual representation could be envisioned along the river. And the reason why we have these typologies is because we want connectivity and consistency along the river. So I'll use a very basic example. If we're talking about putting a bench along the river, to provide some sort of consistency so everybody knows, hey, this is the LA River, this is the thoroughfare that I utilize, this is where I come use open space. We ask for the same common elements along the river so that there's connectivity along all 51 miles, essentially. So anybody who wants to install a trail, an access gateway, to do a crossing or a platform has essentially a toolbook or a guidebook of procedures so that they can pick and choose what they'd like to implement for their projects. Going back to the intent of the master plan itself, it is just a guidebook. So it's a kit of parts for different typologies of what can be placed along the river. So if somebody is interested in adding trail access because there's a high open space, trails, recreation need in that area, you look at the kit of parts within trails and accessways to get ideas and inspiration for what can be done. So we'll use an example, like channel modifications and crossing platforms are a lot bigger efforts. To construct a trail or an access gateway versus modifying a channel or constructing a whole platform, they're 2 different scales of projects. So some communities might have objections to crossings and platforms because we're essentially further closing the LA River. You know, there's been a lot of controversy and discussion within the master plan itself about channelizing the LA River. You know, there's been a lot of local groups that have wanted to leave the LA River in its natural state or restore it. So certain communities would probably be opposed to crossings and platforms in their area because that essentially closes off the river to them as a whole. even though we're expanding and having more, I guess, floor work to have open space, parks, recreation, and so on and so forth. So while in concept, you might decide, hey, as a project proponent, I'd like to install or propose crossings and platforms. This might not work in the community that you're gearing it towards. It has to be based on the needs of that area. This is the first pavilion project within the master plan's jurisdiction, essentially tearing off of it. This is located at the LA River headwaters in Canoga Park. So this is actually the start of the LA River. And what we're proposing is essentially a gateway or an access point and an entryway into the LA River. So right now, currently, this area is fenced off and the LA River is inside of this pavilion area. What we're envisioning is modifications at this intersection in order to allow people to enter into the LA River. We have restroom structures, we have a shaded area for picnic benches and seating, and then there's an access ramp down into the LA River channel. And this is the first of its kind that's being implemented along the river. But what we're envisioning is seeing these types of rest stops at every half mile along the 51 miles, so that if somebody enters to walk or bike or utilize that public open space, they'll be able to stop at various cadences along the river. It's tough because that's why we're handling this one at a time. So some of the issues that we're addressing at this first pavilion will help us out for future pavilions along the line. So one of the biggest questions that we've gotten from the community is, okay, well, this pavilion is great. You're going ahead and installing this rest structure, this restroom, these trash bins, but how are you going to maintain this? Who's going to pay for the maintenance of this? Who's going to take care of this pavilion? And not every pavilion has this extensive level of features. Not every pavilion will have a restroom. Most of them will have bike racks and benches and seating, but we will develop them at frequent enough cadences along the river to ensure their proper use. Because if you put a restroom along every half a mile, it's not just about putting the restroom there. Who's going to take care of that? Who's going to clear out the trash bins? Who's going to clean out the restrooms? Who's going to maintain that area? So we're very strategic about what we want to incorporate along which stretch of the river and how frequently. So this might require a more extensive effort for maintenance, whereas, you know, down the line at half a mile down or a mile down, where we just have a rest area, maybe a straight structure and a bike rack, it will require less maintenance. That's why we have 3 tiers of pavilions within the LA River Master Plan, because we don't need all of those features at every location. We want to have that regular cadence along the river, and we want to have that frequency, but you also don't want to go above and beyond where the community doesn't need that. You know, because everything costs money, time, it must be maintained properly. So you take all of those into account when you're putting a project in.
다음은 LA 카운티 아트 앤 컬처를 방문했습니다. 이들은 정부기관으로서 예술인을 지원하는 문화예술기관입니다. 정부기관이 문화 커뮤니티와 협력하는 방법을 알고자 이곳을 찾았습니다.
Yes, so we the LA City kind of takes care of their portion mainly, but the idea is that LA County has sort of oversight of, because a lot of the neighborhoods along the 51 miles are in these unincorporated areas. Permitting is quite challenging, and right now we're in a phase called implementation. So we have these goals and that you can see in the master plan, and now it's like, okay, so how do we do this? And so we're working this out now. We're working out right now how, for instance, how some of the funding for, let's say, an artwork along the river will come from, let's say, flood control, right? The flood control department. And so, but they have very specific rules. They don't really fund artworks, but they can fund, for instance, they can fund what's called, let's say, a functional artwork. So an artist designs a landscape or an artist designs a bench. That they can fund. And so we're figuring out with other departments, like, what are all the rules, and then how do we make that work, right? And right now we're working on the first project is at the headwaters, which is sort of up north at the beginning of the river in Canoga Park. And one thing that we've also been working on, because we're building this project thinking if we figure out the rules for that project, then we can use that same model along the river. Not for every project, because there might be different ways of funding it, but for many projects along the river. So it takes a long time to figure this out. So one thing that we're also doing is, you know, especially in America, if there's something like the LA River, we really also have to think about Native communities, right? Who are the first communities who lived in this land. And for Native communities, the river is sacred. So we're also thinking very much about, we're reaching out to different representatives of Native communities to understand what their needs are and how they would like to do things. We're trying to figure out different ways of finding who the representatives of communities are so that we can connect with them. We're trying to reach out to schools, right? Because part of our job also with access to the arts is also how can you support the creative community? So that means working artists, but also maybe future artists. And we also are recommending that if someone is not experienced, they should still apply and they should hire a project manager, that we will work with them in different ways. So that allows many, many different kinds of artists to submit for that. This is something we used to have qualifications where you had to have done a similar project, right? Which means that you already had to be a public artist, you already had to have all that experience. So that excluded many people. And now we're thinking of different ways where we can include more people. So we're very, very interested in that. And we're also very careful about how we structure our selection panels. So what's interesting is sometimes the best artist for a project is just from that very specific area. But we've also had, we now put more community members on our selection panels and art specialists that are from the community. And this also sounds like something, you know, that is, this is something that's very invisible also, but we're also looking at, let's say if we get a budget for a project, how are we spending that budget? So for instance, we can have a project, instead of giving one big artwork to one artist to do one thing, maybe we split it, and maybe multiple artists are doing smaller things, you know, or doing, it could be, it's not even size, because sometimes depending on how it's done, sometimes you can get something big that's not that expensive. So, but the idea is to include more people, right? Instead of the one artist who does the one big thing for the community, maybe it's many artists that are doing things. So in that way, then also what the communities are seeing is they're seeing themselves reflected in many different voices. So that's sort of a circular, right? It makes things more circular in that way.
다음은 Friends of LA River, 폴라입니다. 이들은 LA강 기반 비영리 단체 중 가장 규모가 크며 강에서 청소, 축제, 교육 등 다양한 프로그램을 진행하고 있습니다. 저희는 이곳에서 사람들을 한데로 모아 다양한 활동을 할 수 있는 방법에 대해 알아보고자 했습니다.
People love the environment. They know that it's getting hot. They're trying to find ways to help mitigate that, to help control that. And so any way that they can help out the environment that helps them out. Yeah, so last year was our first time. It was just an experiment to see how can we get the community more involved with FOLAR, because what Riverfest used to be, it was our fall gala fundraiser, and it wasn't quite accessible for everyone. It wasn't quite equitable for everyone. So the Riverfest is a free event for the community. So it's the community's way of helping us by just attending, by just showing up. That's all we really ask for. And so it's just more of us to create more accessible and more equitable programs for our community. Meaning everybody. So no matter how old you are, any physical, mental capabilities, no matter what your gender, your race, however you identify, it's open to everyone. And also, since it's a free event, it doesn't matter what your class is, you can show up. So equitable for everybody. Everyone under the rainbow. That's what I like to say. It's always changing, so we don't know what are the needs of the river. And so for us being known for so many years as just a river cleanup organization, that's been fine. And then so now we're switching to this mode of, okay, now FOLAR is known for our educational programs. So this is the current shift that we're switching into, like the cleanups, like you said there, it's a temporary thing. Our education program is now our new permanent thing that we're known for, is having a really strong education program. Yeah, so that one was, we just had the right staff. So our predecessors had a lot of connections with teachers, and so they would just give out, this is also before technology, so giving out paper flyers saying, hey, these are our programs, come check them out. And so when one teacher tried it, liked it, told another teacher, told another teacher, told another teacher. And so just from word of mouth, that's how that all got started. Yeah, so we just partner with other communities or other organizations. So like for our field trips, we partner with LAUSD, that is the Los Angeles Unified School District. And that's just to get more students at the river, get more students involved. It's just, if we have common passions, common interests, and that's when we get the communities involved. Like the Malaysian Valley Arts Coalition, I believe that's what they're called. They're going to be at Riverfest. Since they're here in Malaysian Valley, that's where we are right now. And they're an art program, and they like bringing art to students. We like bringing the nature to students. So we work together to bring art and nature. So it's just, if we have same interests, then yeah, we work together. So it's just a big partnership, because there's a lot of different people who own the LA River. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. This park is ran by the MRCA, and so it's just different partners that we try to keep happy. So like just like our community, we hear them out. What do they want? Same thing with these agencies. Like, how can we help them keep this pretty, keep this open for people?
다음은 클락샵입니다. 이들은 공공공간의 가치를 두어 누구나 수변공간을 즐길 수 있도록 노력하는 예술단체입니다. 이곳에서 커뮤니티 이야기를 공공예술로 표현하는 것에 대해 알고자 했습니다.
So I founded Clockshop, next year will be 20 years. And the idea was to bring arts and culture to public space in Los Angeles. So we didn't start as a river-focused organization. We started as an organization that was intending to look at public space in the city and to bring more arts and culture to those spaces. Really, our river-focused work started about 10 years ago, in 2014, with noticing how much the neighborhood was changing because of river revitalization, because the river became a focus of adding green space to the city, and that changed the neighborhood. And they wanted those places to be nice for their families and their neighbors. So for the past 10 years, we've worked very closely with California State Parks on a particular piece of land called the Bow Tie, which is 18 acres and is part of the 100 Acre Park Partnership. think about the environmental implications of the river, but we also want it to be a space where people can, you know, go and enjoy, and people who've been in this neighborhood for a long time. So yeah, our mission has slightly shifted to really kind of be articulated as we work to bring arts and culture to public land. Public land is also public space, but we really focus on public land now. If that makes sense.
Is a performance artist, works with installation. We've done film programs, we've done music programs, inviting all sorts of artists using a lot of different mediums to convey their message. And we've programmed both at Bowtie, which I just mentioned, it's over there, and at Los Angeles State Historic Park. The difficulties in doing programming and putting on artist projects on outdoors in public space, but I think the fact that we can reach so many different types of people, like a person who can go to LACMA or a major museum here, or may not have access to that because it costs money to go to museums. Like, it's free to go to a park, you know, it's like, this is all free for so many different people to experience. And like what Dario said, the people who fought for the park, like people in Chinatown or Lincoln Heights, a lot of them are immigrant people, like low-income people, families, and they are disappearing, like they're being displaced because of how much more expensive it is, just the effects of gentrification. So by putting public art, doing programming that is welcoming of all different types of people, we're hoping to re-engage those people back and invite new audiences to care about
Bringing people together. This city is very, although there's many different types and ethnicities of people who live here, it is often hard to find space where a lot of people gather from different backgrounds. Even though it's, in a way, you know, a special thing about this city that there's so many different types of people here, but it's hard to find places where people actually come together and you can encounter people of different ages, different races, different backgrounds. So, yeah.
And in the space that's free. Like, so you're not charging people for anything.
And so I think we're kind of trying to create a space where we can show and prove that when people connect to things emotionally through an artistic, like a beautiful experience, that they're going to care about the place where they are. They're going to care about the space where they experience that emotional connection.
다음은 LA 리버 퍼블릭 아트 프로젝트입니다. 이들은 커뮤니티 문화적 격차를 예술 프로그램으로서 소통하고 해결하고자 하는 단체입니다. 이곳에서 다양한 배경의 커뮤니티가 하나로 소통하는 공간으로서의 강에 대해 이해하고자 했습니다.
Ask them, you know, if we do a festival, what kind of things would you like to see at the festival? What sort of things would you like to do at the festival, and how would it express who you are and what your community is to an international audience? Because we want people from Korea to come to the festival and know about it and be excited. We want it to be a big festival, and people from France, people from Europe, people from Africa to know about this festival. So what do we want to show the world that tells who San Fernando Valley people are along the LA River? So to begin to make a bridge with Indigenous people, the correct way to do that is what I tried to do. I reached out to the Tongva elder and culture bearer, Tina Calderon, and invited her to meet me here just at the river where I met you. And I brought to her a bandana like this. This is one that I made. And it has a symbol, it has some lines on it. It's a symbol of, it's kind of a motif from a public art project that I did. And in it, I put tobacco, and I wrapped that up, and I put it like here. She was here. I put it like here. And I said to her, will you please help my organization work with the river as a relative and find a way to increase the health of the river and the Tongva people through art and culture, engaging the communities. And I said, this is a token of my esteem and appreciation on the part of my organization as the leader of my organization to you as the leader of the Tongva people. And that was how we started. And I didn't make her take it, I didn't put it in her hands. You have to be careful, and you put it between you so that she can choose. If she takes it, she's accepted. If she doesn't take it, you don't keep talking. You don't try to convince. You just accept their wishes and thank them for their time, and you go away. And you don't do the project anymore. So luckily she took my bandana and said, yes, I'd be glad to help you. And now since then we've been working with her as an advisor. And that's taken time because she didn't have a relationship with the river anymore. And her daughter didn't have a relationship with the river anymore. And so gradually, very slowly, at the speed, I like to say at the speed of friendship, at the speed that you would build a friendship, which can go very slowly. We've been getting to know each other. We've been giving space to her and her community to get to know the river better and finding ways for them to be on the river, to show our audiences what it means to treat the river like a relative, how they do that, how they've always done that, and how can we help us understand how we can do that too. When planning a project for the LA River, the first thing I look at is it's not about the physical or about the designed elements. It's about the location, the community that lives around that location, who they are, and how do I reach them, and have some events that they might come to, and we can talk about what sort of project we could do there together.
기관 인터뷰를 마치고 마지막으로 LA강으로 이동해 시민들에게 강에 대한 만족도를 묻는 인터뷰를 진행했습니다.
So I really like the LA River because I work next to here, and I always come with my kids to be like just in the fresh air, like what I'm doing now, just admiring the river. I've heard about that. I wouldn't like, but if it's gonna make good for everyone around.
The river, I'm cruising around the river, I like the river, I like everything here. For me, it's beautiful in here, and the beach is more beautiful, because I see the water and everything, fishes. But the river is for bicycles, special for bicycles too. Exactly for the Los Angeles, for Glendale, for everything. For everything, but it's nice in there here.
Yeah, so this area was very well known for like gang-related activity. In the last few years, we've seen a decrease in that, and it's a lot more family friendly. So me and my family, like I'm taking a walk today. Sometimes we do a bike ride, and we can take it all the way down, and we'll go down to Griffith Park and go to the park, and which is not something that I would have been able to do when I was younger. And just hanging out, going to get coffee down the river without having to worry about traffic. It's just a nice thing to be able to do in Los Angeles. Now I know that they've had like the art walk that they've had in the past, and they've had like educational opportunities through I think it's like the Marsh Project or something. So I know that there's education that is done through that, and I know that there's an area where the Colombe, the coffee place is, like down that street, which is Newell. there is like a location where you can get like additional information regarding like this beautification project of the LA River. Yeah.
River, but the part with all the train stations, and so it's very barren. And I think this part of the LA River is really nice because it has like a creek and there's actual like trees growing on it. So in some spots it's like really beautiful, but I think in other spots it's like barren, and some people can critique it for like it as an infrastructural issue as well. Yeah.
인터뷰 결과 시민들은 전반적으로 LA강을 자신들의 삶과 친숙하게 이용하고 있었습니다. 이를 끝으로 저희는 한국으로 귀국해 연구 결과를 정리했습니다. 미국이라는 다양한 인종이 사는 나라에서 모두의 목소리를 소외 없이 반영하고 또 유기적으로 협력하는 기관들을 보며 서울의 지류 개발에도 적용할 만한 몇 가지 시사점을 느낄 수 있었습니다. 제각기 색다른 매력을 살린 지류가 될 수 있도록 지역 예술가들을 지원하고 지역 커뮤니티가 소통할 수 있는 창구를 마련하고 지류를 통합적이고 체계적으로 관리할 수 있도록 새로운 비전에 대한 필요성을 느낄 수 있었습니다. 이러한 지역 주민에 대한 이해가 선행되어야 시민 참여를 도모할 수 있기에 앞서 뽑았던 세 가지 키워드인 지역성과 문화예술, 그리고 시민 참여는 모두 개별적인 것이 아닌 함께 연결되어 있다는 것을 알 수 있었습니다. 서울의 지류가 단순 명소화되는 것이 아닌 시민 중심의 공간으로서 또 도시의 핵심 오픈 스페이스로 재탄생하기를 바라면서 LA 1팀의 도시미인 탐방기는 마치도록 하겠습니다.